gentlemen, to Season 11. We're here with Round 1. It's a brand new day for the Sim Racing Alliance. It's going to be a little bit more punishing out here during qualifying.
It's definitely a hard one here. It's what it's like. It's very, very punishing.
For all the way in Germany, this will be the first time we see this in the team series here. This is a track where you will be driving the track, not as much driving the drivers on the track.
Very brave is the Ferrari to get the move done.
He does get this position done.
Oh, huge contact, and they're both going to go around. It's going to be a huge move up the inside.
He's been using every bit of the track.
Pedal to the metal, foot to the floor.
And we're off and away for SRA.
That is right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sim Racing Alliance GT3 Team Series. You are tuned in once again to the Division 3 stream. We are coming at you from Zandvoort for a blazing hot race, the 6th race of our 12th season. My name is Philip Mueller. Thank you once again for having me back. My normal co-commentator, Donovan Colton, is absent this week. He's on a nice little vacation, so we're wishing him safe travels. But what that means for you and me, chat, is that we're hanging out together this week. If you have any storylines you're interested in, shout it out in the chat. Donovan's normally the guy who keeps my eyes open. So yeah, be loud in the chat. Let's have a nice race together. So qualifying will be starting in just a couple minutes here. In the meantime, let's check out our current standings. So after last week's wet Red Bull Ring race, John Laz has taken the overall lead, 326 points, which is ahead of Curtis Lee and Quentin Shatner, who are very close to each other in second and third place with 299 and 293 points respectively. Caleb Craig, after a pair of just fantastic finishes in our last two races, has rocketed his way to the silver overall lead. He's got 291 points. The next highest silver driver, you see their number 14 on the overall list, Kevin Johnston with 218, also Russell Allen with 218 points. They are miles behind Mr. Caleb Craig. He's running away with this one. We'll have to keep an eye on him for this race to see if he can keep up that amazing string of finishes. We got some more standings here. Looking at the team standings, so the Stealth Panda Racing Love of Lexus team of DJ Watts and Curtis Lee in that beautiful Lexus GT3 car, still hanging on to first place, 529 points, just barely ahead of the Midfield Masters team of Zodi Fade and Quentin Shatner with 523 points. The Comic Racing team that's in the Bentley this season, slightly behind. I know we had Martin Riggs was absent from last week's race, so there was some points lost there. But with the pace of Caleb Craig, with the pace of that Bentley, we are definitely expecting these guys to put on a huge performance in the tail end of this season. We're going to have to keep an eye on all of these championship battles as we progress. So, as I said, we are in Zandvoort. The temperatures are just absurd. So for this qualifying session, 38 degrees on track right now. These drivers are going to have an extremely difficult time keeping their tires cool, keeping their tempers cool. This is going to be a wild one, something to watch out for. So you're looking at the track map here. We come down hairpin at turn 1, that right hand turn 2. If you guys remember back, Laguna Seca, this division had trouble with the curb of death. Turn 2 here is another curb of death. Going to be keeping an eye on that all day, seeing if these guys can navigate that really, really tall, really dangerous bit of concrete. So, jumping over to our qualifying session, we've got 19 minutes on the board. As always, the first 10 minutes is dedicated to our silver drivers. So out on track now, we're on board with Martin Riggs. As I said, those are our two, just right next to each other on track, are beautiful liveries on these comic racing Bentleys. Super noticeable on track. I love the bright colors. Again, so looking at our leaderboards, as we always do, so Mr. Caleb Craig in the other comic racing Bentley has our top leaderboard time from our practice sessions, a 136.120. Massive time, absolutely smashing the leaderboards. So obviously he is our favorite coming into this qualifying session. We'll have to see though how low those times can go. Surely they'll be well into the 136s. But yeah, we'll see how low we can get it as we are coming now. So this will be our first flying lap for our silver drivers. We're going to jump ahead to Mr. Russell Allen, who is first out on track. He will be setting our first flying time in this lovely Plan E Racing Ireland flag liveried Porsche with the the Plan E Racing logo. That's the Ferrari emblem upside down on the side of the car. So we've got the prancing horse on the side of a Porsche representing the Irish flag. It's all good. It's only a little confusing. Russell Allen here coming through this tough, twisty second sector on this track down the straight now. A tricky chicane here to navigate for these guys. Hard to get perfectly right, but very easy to get just disastrously wrong. Russell Allen doing well to keep it neat and tidy through that first attempt here, coming through this long right-hander back on to the main straight. So some of the viewers out there might be a little confused. Yes, this is an older version of the track. It doesn't have the new banking of the Formula One races that you may have seen. So it's just a little different. It's not earth-shattering, but something to get used to as both a spectator and a driver. We have our first laps coming across the line right now. As I hit this button, we see here that Caleb Craig naturally has gotten up to the top. After his first flying lap, only a 137.6, which is promptly beaten by Mr. Zipperburn with a 137.1. Again, these times are going to come way down, so these drivers just getting their legs stretched out, just getting some heat into the tires, and we will definitely see how they do on their following laps. So Caleb Craig followed closely behind by his teammate Martin Riggs, who had a 137.9. Jeremy Yaron in this lovely Ferrari 488. It's the old one. Beautiful looking car, beautiful livery, currently sitting in P3 with a 137.635, right behind Caleb Craig. Hoping to see a bit of an improvement out of him. We wish all of the success on the Yaron brothers. They're handicapping themselves a bit with this old Ferrari, but I love to see it on track, and I love to see these guys do well. So checking here, coming through this difficult long right-hander. This end of this sector 2 here. Super technical, super hard to get absolutely right, but he's got a good drive coming down onto what I would call this back straight here. We see that Aston Martin just ahead on track. That's Miss Stephanie Fisher leading Yaron through the final chicane here. And so yeah, let's get a little up close and personal view of this again. So this is the old. We've got a little bit of a right-hander, straighten out for a bit, and then so you don't have the advantage of the banking in this iteration of the track. So you really do have to kind of perfect your setup. Don't want to be too understeery. You do need to make that last turn flat out, as Mr. Yaron does a very good job of that. A small improvement, maintaining a relatively high position on the leaderboard. In the meantime, of course, there he is, Mr. Caleb Craig, our first 36 of the evening, a 136.592. He will have I am expecting 3 more attempts at this. So he's got 2 minutes left on the board. If each of these laps are taking about 1.5 minutes, he should have, 3-ish more attempts at setting a hot time. Jumping on with Mr. Zipperburns, currently sitting in P3, but he has a very impressive improvement on the Delta here. He's 0.6 up on his previous best time. Looking to see if he can hold it together. That beautiful Canadian-themed McLaren here. It's a good-looking car. It's a good-looking livery. Keeping it nice and tight through that hairpin. Losing a little bit of time, losing a little bit of drive, but still a huge improvement on the board if he can hold it together through this second-to-last right-hander. Keeping it within track limits, a bit onto the grass on the outside. That will cost him a bit of time, losing a bit on the Delta. He was at one time 0.6 up. He's about 4.5 up. It'll get him up to second place overall. A very impressive 136.652, but not quite enough with that mistake to overtake Caleb Craig for provisional pole. Another driver with a good improvement on the board. We got Mr. Kevin Johnston here with the Season 12 West Coast Best Coast Audi. Loving the team name, loving the livery. He is currently a handful of tenths up as he comes through this super tricky Sector 2. Got to get it slowed way down for this tight right-hander. Not a whole lot of traction, especially in these hot temperatures, so these drivers doing everything they can to wrestle these cars around these turns, get the drive onto this back straight. Excellent drive, even more of an improvement. He's now up to 0.4 of an improvement on the Delta. If he nails this braking point into the chicane, he does absolutely. Good traction out of the hairpin. This is a fantastic lap for Mr. Kevin Johnston, and considering the time left on the board, he will have time for one more. Very nice job out of the second to last right-hander. Flat out through this final right-hander onto the main straight. So again, he'll jump up about 0.4, which will be enough to get him into third place overall with, again, about 1 lap. He may even have time for 2 more. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Other drivers out on track. So Alberts has already returned to pit. Stephanie Fisher, a tough time in this Aston Martin. Not an easy car to drive and not an easy track to drive it on. So she will have one more opportunity. Currently sitting with a 138.7. Hoping to see a little bit more out of her. We've got Mr. Richie Wood in this beautiful... he's got the Union Jack on top of that car. I love that copper tone. I love the Boddington's Pale Ale sponsorship on the side of it. Mr. Richie Wood representing the other side of the pond and doing well in his final qualifying lap here. So he is only a couple tenths off of pole. I'm looking at, he was at one time 0.3 up on his Delta, but out of that slow right-hander, he did lose a bit. He's still got an improvement on the board, so we're going to stay on board. Looking to see if he can make a jump and at the very least overtake Mr. Zipperburn for provisional second place. Taking a lot of curb through that chicane though. Doing well to put the traction down as we come into this third sector here. Richie Wood gaining time as we go. This final turn out onto the main straight using all of the track. 0.3 of an improvement. It won't be enough for pole position, but it will be enough to take second place overall, a 136.432. Fantastically well done for Mr. Richie Wood. So he must have crossed the line in time for one more flying lap. So this will be Mr. Caleb Craig's final attempt. He is already on provisional pole. We're going to jump ahead in the meantime. This is Mr. Jason Yaron, the other 488 Ferrari, crossing the line for his final attempt as his brother does a celebratory spin out. So the Yarn brothers taking P6 and 7 overall after our silver session. Back on board with Mr. Caleb Craig. So again, he is on the board already. Provisional pole with a 136.240. But as he comes out of this final turn of Sector 2 onto the back straight, he is up for a bit of a improvement. Not quite a 10th, doing well to navigate this this tricky chicane hairpin combination. Using all of the track limits, you see just sniffing the grass on the outside. Mr. Caleb Craig hustling that Bentley around this final turn onto the start-finish straight. He will have a bit of an improvement here, so not quite a 10th up, but he will improve to a 136.150, only 3/100ths off of his PB from qualifying. An extremely clutch, extremely impressive performance from Mr. Caleb Craig. And boy, I think these gold drivers, as we see Pat Cockcroft crossing the line for the first flying lap of our gold drivers, man, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to beat that time. A 136.150. The bar has been set. Caleb Craig says, come at me, bro. This is my season to take. I don't care if I'm only a silver driver. Let's go. So we did also have some penalties to note. The big one on my board, so we've got Mr. John Ansom has a qualifying ban, Mr. Burke has a qualifying ban, although I do not see him on the server, so nothing to worry about there. But the big one, Carlos Guzman, who you will remember from last race, had an extremely impressive performance. He actually crossed the line P2, but due to penalties, he finished P3. Still gained a ton of points. He had a great race. He is also serving a qualifying ban this race. So, he's super fast. Lots of talent there. We'll have to keep an eye on him as this race goes, because he will be starting from the back and he will need to fight his way through this tough field and a tough track to overtake on, it must be said, as Mr. Pat Cockcroft crosses the line for his first flying lap, a 137.562. Next driver across the line, Mark Anthony Eaton, who, if I recall correctly, had a very impressive result from, I want to say Laguna Seca. It's not on my board. This is normally where I would rely on Mr. Donovan Colton. His memory is much better than mine. But yeah, Mark Anthony Eaton with this, I believe their team name, it shows Caribbean Airlines on your screen right now. I believe their team name is actually the Jamaican Bobsled Team, which, branding, guys, let's show it in game. DJ Watts, so far our top gold driver, and the first to get into the 136s with a 136.890. Again, this is the team. John Les, you see on your screen a bit of a oopsie coming up over the hill. That tricky right-hander in the middle of Sector 2. It did impede DJ Watts a bit. You can't say that there's any intent behind it. You don't ever intentionally hit a wall, but DJ Watts had to lift there, so this lap is a bit null and void, unfortunately. He's still going to have time for, I'm going to say 3 or 4 potentially more laps, so no worries there. But again, DJ Watts and Curtis Lee, these are your team championship number 1 position drivers, so we'll have to keep an eye on them as this race goes on. A driver with a good improvement on the board. This is Mr. Samuel Cortez coming out of this last right-hander onto the start-finish straight. He will improve by about 2/10, getting himself up to 5th place overall. Plenty of time left on the board, as we see Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton jump right up behind him with a 136.912 into 6th place overall. Pat Cockcroft, a couple of tenths up on his PB Taking a look at Phil Brown, so crossing the line here, 0.6 of an improvement on the board, jumping himself up to P9 overall, almost into the 136s with a 137.020. Fantastic work out of him. He still will have 3 more attempts at this, so we'll have to keep an eye on his improvements. DJ Watts, again, he was interrupted on his previous flying lap, so this is kind of his second attempt at it, coming through this tricky sector too. It must be said, at Paul Ricard, the opening race of the season, similarly at Monza, similarly at Red Bull Ring, this car, impressive top line speed, right? Just blindingly fast on a straight line, but I would have expected not so great on the brakes and in the corners. But DJ Watts absolutely hustling this Lexus around the track as he comes through these final right-hand turns. He's got just almost 0.4 of an improvement on the board, almost a half a second now. He is doing the work with this Lexus, putting himself up to P2, and he says, I don't even need my last 2 laps. I'm back into the garage. That's a 136.407. Oh, let me eat my words real quick. He is going to go back out for, we'll see if he gets 2 more. He will have at least 1 more flying lap, a 136.407 in the Lexus of all cars. DJ Watts, super impressive stuff out of him. So, this man, Mr. John Laz, is currently P2 in our overall drivers' point standings. He also finished on track. He was P3 in our last week's race at the Red Bull Ring. After penalties, he got promoted up to P2. So John Laz in this black and gold Porsche, he's been on fire all season long. And, again, the track temperatures are hot, but in addition to his tires being on fire right now, he is continuing his hot streak. Mr. John Laz, as he comes out of this final turn, he has a massive improvement on the board, about 0.7. This will see him jump up from P16 all the way to P5 with a 136.622. Very good. He will still, of course, have time for 2 more laps, so we'll have to keep an eye on his improvements as we see Mr. Zodi Fade. If I'm not mistaken, this was P2 in our team championship, the midfield masters of Shatner and Fade. So currently sitting down in 19th, but a big improvement on the Delta. Coming out of this last turn, Mr. Zodi Fade going to be jumping himself up into 12th place. Not bad. Still time for 1 more lap. So Zodi Fade trying to do the work, trying to break into that top 10 and get himself some good track position. It must be said, this track, not the easiest one in the world to overtake on. The straights, the braking zones, they're not that long, not a whole lot of opportunity for overlap. Really, if the guy in front of you isn't making a mistake, not a whole lot of opportunity to get a move done. So this qualifying session, maybe more than ever, super important to see some good times out of our drivers. Speaking of good times, DJ Watts, we saw him return to garage after his PB lap to get a new set of tires, and as far as strategy goes, it's paying off for him. He is up. This will be his last flying lap. He is up just about 0.2 on his Delta, as long as he doesn't get unnecessarily impeded by the car in front of him on track, who is Mr. Jay Rosenthal of the Balawa racing team, Nissan GTR. Kind of close on track. Hopefully he doesn't get held up. We do want to see DJ Watts make a big jump in this qualifying session. The battle at the top. Oh no! Not sure what to say there. Maybe he just didn't measure his gaps properly and decided that there wasn't enough room in front to finish that lap. He was still up on his Delta, but he parks it. P3, I think that's just fine for a qualifying result. Got a couple of drivers left on track, so we'll have Mr. Vargas. He's actually completed his final lap. Mr. Rosenthal finishing his final qualifying lap. We've got Mr. Steven Music, not in not showing an improvement on the delta. So as it stands, the times you see on the board, this is it. I don't see any drivers on track. Well, pause. We've got Mr. Curtis Lee still out on track and is managing to put up a bit of an improvement. So as he comes out of this final right-hand turn onto the start-finish straight, Curtis Lee, it'll be an improvement, but it might not even be enough to get him up into 13th place. Yeah, nope, that's it. So 14th place for Mr. Lee. So qualifying result, Caleb Craig, the man, the myth, the legend, the silver driver, on pole by 2.5 tenths over Mr. John Laz, DJ Watts, Wood, Cortez, Zipperburn, Eaton, Johnston, Vargas, and Cockcroft, rounding out your top 10. As we take it over to our sponsor, Reed. I'll see you on the other side.
A huge thank you to our SRA sponsors and title sponsors for supporting us here at SRA, as well as support from Documise, a modern business solution for product management. Go to documise.com to learn more today. And support from Retro Saga, a North American-based gaming company that provides accessories for your favourite classic systems, including Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, and much more. Enhance your retro gaming experience today at retrosaga.ca. And a big thank you to our affiliates, Track Racer. Experience redefined gaming with Track Racer's high quality sim rigs and accessories. Use code SRATE at checkout to support us. Armamentario, a toolbox for ACC that will enhance your chance to win. Enjoy a fully customizable and enhanced HUD to change the way you experience ACC. AT 3D Sim Shop. Upgrade your sim racing experience today with premium 3D printed accessories featuring precision crafted magnetic shifters, sleek cable management solutions, versatile stream deck mounts, and immersive dashboard displays. Their innovative designs enhance performance and style, elevate every lap with top-tier quality and craftsmanship at at3d.net. Go Setups, premium esports setups for everybody. Use our affiliate link on our Discord and take your drive to the next level. Castle and Cauldron, a home-based crafting business specializing in handmade Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts and Fairy World collectibles. Magic wands, potions, mini dioramas, wall decor, costumery, cosplay, and much more. Castle and Cauldron is where crafting meets the magical. Visit facebook.com/Castle Cauldron. And from KP Concepts, your source for custom automotive renderings, graphic design, and printing. We spend countless hours making you look all good for the spectacle. Check out kpconcepts.com for more.
Indeed, and so just as Mr. Coadromo spends countless hours making you look good with his posters and photography and artwork, Mr. Jay Queasy, aka Milton May, putting in the countless hours making SRA look good. He did that awesome voiceover for us. I know he's been doing hard work on some graphic design, some video editing. Got to give a special shout out to him, not only because it means I don't have to do the sponsor read, but also because he's just an overall super cool dude. So, again, we're going to come back to this scene. It must be said, if you all out there in the SRA audience and community, if you have the ability, if you have the means to donate to the relief efforts in Florida, we've got some links on screen. Red Cross, Direct Relief. I know we have friends, we have families, we have fellow competitors here at SRA who have been affected by this hurricane. If you have the means to give, please do so. So, jumping into our race scene, we see our drivers on our parade lap. Again, our pole sitter, Mr. Caleb Craig. Some familiar faces, you know. John Laz, he's been there all season. DJ Watts, you gotta love the Lexus. Mr. Richie Wood, we'll see if he can hold it together this race. Samuel Cortez, though, the TC8 racing team representing Colombia. You know, the the struggle has been real at some tracks this season, but man, these guys, so P5 and P9 currently. I love the liveries. I love the color scheme. They keep it consistent across all cars. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on these drivers. I'm rooting for some success out of them as we see our drivers speeding up a bit here. Going to be taking it double file into the third sector here. Just checking in. Let's see. So we've got some drivers starting from the pit lane. We've got Mr. Chris Sweeney is one of them. We just had, that looked like a bit of lag, a driver kind of teleporting to the pits but then back out on track. Hopefully no connection issues with these drivers. Trying to get everything lined up 2 by 2. Bring it in a little bit tighter, Mr. Wood. There we go. I see him at the side of our screen there. So as we get this race underway, again, this might be my last chance to do it because this is probably going to be chaotic, but thank you to everybody in the chat. I see some love for DJ Watts. I see some love for TC8 and Mr. Stefan Buckley himself, Mr. Castle and Cauldron. Thank you for tuning in. We're happy to have you here. So, as our drivers are approaching the start-finish line, Caleb Craig super far back in his starting box. Is he giving John Laz P1? Caleb Craig, a disastrous start, not even going to be able to challenge the Porsche into turn 1. The Lexus of Mr. DJ Watts doing well to keep it on the inside. We see Mr. Cortez sticking his nose in and taking a position off of Mr. Wood. But we see a little contact behind. That was Kevin Johnston. Some further drama further down the order. This was Stephanie Fisher, lost a couple of positions. We also saw, oh no, disaster has struck. We were trying to give him some love. The TC8 Racing team, this was Mr. Vargas, who got clipped by potentially either the BMW or the other McLaren at turn 1 and goes from a super good 9th place qualifying position to currently P27. Disaster has struck for TC8. But that's okay. This is a long race. Plenty of opportunity. We see a little bumping and barging. That's zipper burn on Johnston. You see that blue Audi at the bottom of your screen. Lost a couple of positions, but he's still keeping it going. We've got Cockcroft on the outside of Brown. He will have the inside line as we come into this. Whoa, Phil Brown around the outside? What a move. The BMW just sticking it into that chicane. I thought that was done and dusted for Cockcroft, but Mr. Phil Brown says, no, sir, that's my 9th place. Thank you very much. Looking up ahead, we've got Mr. John Laz still in P1, but under a ton of pressure from Caleb Craig, who's looking around the outside. Surely not. This 180-degree right-hander turn 1, there's no way to keep it around the outside, so John Laz maintains the position. We've got Mr. DJ Watts still in P2. Mr. Samuel Cortez has somehow found his way past Mr. Oh, we actually saw that. Past Mr. Richie Wood for P4. We see some trouble here. So this is Mr. John Ansem, one of our drivers with a penalty. I saw him flash as a yellow flag for a second, looking to see what happened here as we see Cortez. Oh, so this is Vargas, I'm sorry, getting up the inside, but oh, in the meantime, getting smacked in the back by that that beautiful livery on that other bottle of water, Nissan GTR. So John Ansem hanging out in the back of the field. Again, long race, plenty of driving left to do, so hoping to stick this one out. John Laz, Caleb Craig, just kind of keeping it single file. This is, again, these are hour-long races. You're not going to win the race on turn 1 every time, but you can definitely throw it away if you're a little too over-anxious. So Caleb Craig just kind of hanging out. We'll see what kind of slipstream he can get coming out of this final turn here onto the start-finish straight. This should be a good view. So again, these straights on this track, the braking zones, really not long enough, and Caleb Craig, despite you would assume having a top speed advantage over the Porsche, really nothing to be gained there. We see a little bit of drama down the field. Let me see what happened. This is Mr. I believe this is Jeremy Yarin in the Ferrari 488. Final turn. That's the setup thing I was talking about. You need to be able to go flat through that final turn without understeering, and that is exactly what happened to Mr. Yarin there. Onto the grass, losing control all the way down in 29th position, looking to make some improvements as we... Oh, disaster! Disaster has struck for our race leader, John Laz. He's back on track. He will lose no more positions, so down in 7th place now. Looking to see what happened on the replay. And as we come through this... in the second sector, in the braking zone, just maybe a bit too much speed carried there by Mr. Caleb Craig, and John Laz losing out big time, going from 1st to 7th place. You hate to see it. Hoping to make a bit of a comeback here, Mr. John Laz, in that beautiful black and gold Porsche. So, jumping back up front, we got Caleb Craig from DJ Watts, from Samuel Cortez, our top 3 drivers at the moment. About 2 seconds covering these two, so not a super tight battle. If you're looking for close on-track action, we got to go with the other Lexus of Mr. Curtis Lee, currently down in 12th place overall. The driver ahead you see is Mr. Zodi Fade of the Midfield Masters team. The driver behind is Mr. Colin Shea in that Ferrari 296 representing Champion Motorsports. So just a huge gaggle of cars. Look at that tight. So this is from I'm going to say P10 to P15. You could cover them with a blanket right now. But again, I mean, this track, not the easiest to overtake on. This kind of is looking like a parade at this point. Nobody's sticking a nose in. Nobody's making a look. Even in this, one of the slowest turns here, this slow right-hander at the end of Sector 2, you know, maybe you saw the Lexus there looking outside. We saw Shatner behind making a bit of a mistake, but yeah, not a whole lot of overtake. Well, as I say, not a lot of overtaking opportunities. There goes Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton attempting a move on Mr. Zipperburn into the chicane. He will have now the inside line for these final 2 turns. And Mr. Zipperburn overtaken by Mark Anthony Eaton. Fantastically well done from our Jamaican driver here. He will be under potentially a bit of pressure. This is Dick Zipperburn right on the tail of Mark Anthony Eaton, attempting the lunge into turn 1. Can he get it slowed down in time? Mark Anthony Eaton attempting the cutback. He will pull side by side again as we pull into this little left and right hand wiggle, but he wisely tucks it back in. Beautiful stuff here. Eaton and Zipperburn showing us how to race on this tight and twisty Zandvoort circuit. You do see there, that's Mr. John Laz in 7th place behind, hoping to take advantage of some of this fighting, but just staying patient. The gaps at the front are starting to spread out a bit, so Caleb Craig now with a 1.3 second advantage over Mr. DJ Watts, who himself has a 1.6 second advantage over Mr. Samuel Cortez. Jumping back down the order, we got we've got drama. Oh no. Oh, let's see what happened there. I'm going to go back and try to get a replay. So that was the Midfield Masters car of Mr. Zodi Fade. And in the braking zone, the Lexus all over the back of him. I didn't go back far enough to see what happened. But okay, so Mr. Zodi Fade, something happened. I don't know if it was contact with the Lexus or if he lost it by himself, but Zodi Fade now fallen all the way to 23rd, and it's not over yet. He's early on the brakes and letting drivers past. He must have damage. We'll see if he comes into the pits at this first opportunity. gosh, 51 minutes remaining in this race. It must be said that it's got to be way too early to take a new set of tires, but if you have damage, what choice do you have? Mr. Zodi Fade coming out of this last turn here, holding it tight to the inside. So, yep, so this will be our first pitter, and man, so he was hit. His car is damaged. 51 minutes left on the board. He's going to have an uphill battle ahead of him. We want to see if he's got to take it calm. He's got to take it easy. He's got to preserve those tires. Jumping back up ahead, we got Mr. Pat Cockcroft right up behind the Audi of Kevin Johnston. This is a on-track battle for P9 and 10 we're seeing on screen. Coming through here, love this fast right-hander at the end of Sector 2, followed by, got to get right back on the brakes. Ooh, we see a spin ahead. That's Mr. Phil Brown of the PHR Taxi Squad. It looked like he was kind of just all on his own. So again, fast. Oh, it was out of the fast left-hander. He got a little loose, and yeah, his tires must be screaming at him right now. Off into the dirt, a full spin. Wow, the driver's behind doing well to avoid contact, except wow, that looked like a McLaren who was coming for him. Holy, Phil Brown back on track, 26th position now. Jumping on board with our other comic racing Bentley. This is Mr. Martin Riggs, down in 15th place under huge pressure from the Bailey Mobile. This is Mr. Justin McKechnie in the BMW M4 on this straight here. Not enough top end speed to obtain any sort of overlap. He's just going to have to kind of keep it right behind in P16. Keeping an eye on the gaps at the top. Caleb Craig still doing well to run away with it. He's got a 1.6 second advantage over DJ Watts, who in the meantime has set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:37.240. So DJ Watts in that Lexus, purple time on the board so far. Samuel Cortez, though, keeping it tight. He is still within 1.2 seconds of the driver ahead, so not letting him run away with it by any means. John Laz, our unfortunate former race leader, still stuck down in P7 behind Mark Anthony Eaton, who is himself still P6 behind Mr. Zipperburn and Mr. Wood. A little bit of drama, but otherwise we are still kind of just keeping it in line. Back on board with Mr. McKechnie, who is under a bit of pressure himself from Mr. Allen behind in that Plan E Porsche. Coming through this tough and twisty kind of chicane to hairpin combo. Super technical, super hard to get perfect. These drivers doing well to keep it together though. Out onto the start-finish straight for the end of our 7th lap here. 48 minutes left on the board. Still plenty more to race for. John Laz, man, you gotta feel for him. So he's still right up behind Eaton. Only 3 or 4 tenths of the gap separating these two cars. But man, without a huge top speed advantage, this is going to be a tough move to get done. Speaking of our Jamaican bobsleigh team McLarens, we do see Mr. Sean Daniels, the teammate of Mark Anthony Eaton, jumping into the chat saying, "Hola, what's up, my dude? Welcome to the stream. Sorry that you couldn't be here, but hoping to have you back soon." So, looking back down the field, jumping on board with Mr. Colin Shea of the Stefaz Designs Champion Motorsport team, putting a huge amount of pressure on Mr. Almeida in that taxi cab BMW that you see just ahead. Only 2 tenths separating these two drivers as they come down this back straight up into this final chicane to hairpin combo. Shea followed by his teammate Mr. Williams, followed by Riggs, McKechnie, Allen, Guzman. Super tight. So this is from P12 to P18. All super tight on track. Lots of action in the forecast. Speaking of action, he's got it done. This was into turn 1. John Laz was able to draw alongside Mark Anthony Eaton. I wonder how he got it done. The Porsche on the straight, did he have the top speed, or was he just braver on the brakes? An absolute send into turn 1. John Laz getting the job done. Block pass, getting himself up into 6th position here. Well done to him, and he is now released to go hunt down Mr. Zipperburn, the next driver on track, up in P5. Mark Anthony Eaton keeping it tight behind. Looking back to our big battles, we've got Mr. Colin Shea right up behind Mr. Almeida still. Allen behind McKechnie still. Mr. Wilder Vargas, who we saw with some early drama, kept it going. He's back up to P20, a little slow through this second sector. But I believe he's made at least 7, 8, 9 overtakes up into P20 now, and hoping to make a couple more. Wilder Vargas, we'll have to see his progress. There has been some drama. Replay time. So this was Mr. Zipperburn, who had, I want to say, a 2-second advantage over John Laz, and into that super tricky chicane to hairpin combo. He keeps it together, but he loses a ton of time and loses the position now. John Laz up into 5th place. The man has steam coming out of his ears. He's on a mission. Gotten himself up from 7th to 5th place now. The next driver on his hit list, we've got Mr. Richie Wood. The gap between the two, you can see it there on screen. A huge gap between Wood and Laz. 4.5 seconds, but we're anxious to see how quickly he can get that done. The Yarin brothers, we had a bit of drama at first, so I believe it was Mr. Jeremy Yarin that we saw understeer out of the final turn onto the start-finish straight, down in 28th place. Not sure what happened to his brother, but down in 27th place. Not a great weekend. Well, you say weekend because it's got to be the race weekend, right? But not a great Wednesday night for the Yarin brothers in that beautiful Ferrari 488, 27th and 28th on track. We have some drama llamas. This is Mark Anthony Eaton spinning it potentially all by himself. You saw, we didn't really go back far enough in the replay, but you saw Zipperburn was ahead. This is sector 2 after the fast right-hander into the slow right-hander. Mark Anthony Eaton appears to spin all by himself and ends up well off track, losing a ton of ground from P7 to P22. Disastrous stuff for Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton. Jumping ahead, we got some on-track battling. We've got Mr. Martin Riggs side by side with the Ferrari of Mr. Williams. That horsepower getting him around the outside, but on the brakes, the Ferrari sticks his nose back in. He says, "No, I'm not going to make it that easy on you, sir." Mr. Sean Williams, some excellent on-track battling, but Riggs with the cutback. Beautiful stuff here. A little bit of just a slightest of touches, but Mr. Riggs getting the job done. Taking P11 from Williams, who is still under huge threat. That's McKechnie behind, Shea behind him, Russell Allen, P15. This midfield battle is still absolutely electric. As we see Mr. Riggs, the kind of the head of this pack, hoping to make a break in that beautiful Comic Racing Bentley. As we watch this battle, we are keeping an eye on the deltas. So Mr. Laz, having gained 5th position after his overtake on Zipperburn and Eaton, he has not been able to make too much of an impression on P4. The gap between P4 and P5 still about 4.5 seconds. John Laz, as we see, so that's Mr. Guzman behind, a little bit wide and under threat now. Vargas last time we saw this man, he was in P20, got himself up to P17, right up behind this Ford Mustang of Mr. Guzman, who his first set of tires is tapping out Guzman into the pits. So Vargas P16 from that unfortunate start. So, oh, we've got drama. That's Mr. McKechnie. Got to go back and see what happened to him. This is out of the final turn. Start finish straight, under threat from Shea behind in that Champion Motorsports Ferrari, into the braking zone of turn 1, and yeah, oh, that's going to be one of those driver behind potentially not having enough of an overlap to be entitled to space, and yeah, Justin McKechnie down into 19th place as a result of that unfortunate contact. But the race goes on. 40 minutes left in the race. Colin Shea behind his teammate now, Mr. Williams. You saw just ahead, that was Mr. Martin Riggs, P11. The closest on-track battle in the top 10 you're looking at right now, so that's Mr. Cockcroft in P7. Under pressure from behind, that's Mr. Curtis Lee in the Panda Racing Lexus, who is himself under pressure from Mr. Quentin Shatner of the Midfield Masters McLaren team. So this is P7, 8, and 9 on track, separated by about a second and a half. Boy, Cockcroft, in the time that I was sitting here talking to myself, Cockcroft has made a bit of a break, has extended his lead over Lee behind by about a half a second there, trying to make a break for it, trying to get himself out of the danger zone, so to speak. Hashtag Kenny Loggins. Jumping back to P14, this is Mr. Russell Allen, right up behind Mr. Colin Shea. Vargas, every time we look at him, he's going up a position. He was P17, then somebody pit, and he was P16. Maybe we must have had another pitter. Wilder Vargas up to P15 now. 40 minutes left in this race. And putting the pressure onto Mr. Russell Allen coming through this lovely, I love this part of the track, over this hill. Love this long, fast right-hander. Just a quick tap of the brakes to get it chucked into this super fast right-hander. Avoid that curb on the inside, and then big time onto the brakes. The front left tire at this point of all of these cars must be absolutely screaming in this super hot conditions here at Zandvoort. Great view. Wilder Vargas all over the back of Russell Allen, coming into this back straight here into the braking zone of the chicane. Not a whole lot of action happening, but a close battle we got to keep our eye on. Another close battle on track. This is Mr. John Ansom, who was one of our back of the field starters. He had a qualifying ban. He started all the way at the back. He's got himself up into, well, it shows P21 on screen right now, but we've had some pit stops. So after everything hashes out, we'll see how it's looking. But right up behind Miss Stephanie Fisher, who is the Champion Motorsports Stefaz Designs Bitch Peas Aston Martin team, currently showing in P20. Curtis Lee still keeping it close to Mr. Cockcroft. Again, this is a on-track battle for P7 and 8. You see P9 Shatner in the McLaren behind. Close enough to take advantage if anything happens to either one of these two drivers. Coming through this tricky sector too. So these drivers have not pit yet. So it's been about 23 minutes. So all of these drivers that you see on your screen right now with the orange 1 next to their driver number, that shows that they still have to complete one mandatory pit stop. For example, if we go down to some of the other drivers now with the green rectangle and no number next to their name, these 4 drivers at the bottom have completed their mandatory pit stops. Just for you guys at home, that's how you keep track of it. Is it an orange 1? They still have to pit. Is it a green rectangle? They do not. So this will be now Samuel Cortez, the first of our pitting from P4. So the first of our top drivers to pit here. 36 minutes left on the clock, potentially going for an undercut on the drivers ahead. Samuel Cortez of the TC8 Racing Team. We also see Mr. Quentin Shatner coming in for a pit stop. It's all happening. We got Colin Shea in the pits as well. So with 36 minutes left in this race, the strategy calls are starting to happen. We've got a bunch of drivers going for an undercut. We'll see how it goes. Caleb Craig marches on. We haven't been able to take a look at him in a while, but he is just putting down hot lap after hot lap. He's got a 3-second gap now over DJ Watts in P2, who himself has a dang near 6-second gap over Mr. Richie Wood, currently P3. We've got John Laz out on track, showing P4 on the board, but again, that was because of some drivers ahead pitting. So John Laz going a bit long on his stint. We'll see how that plays out strategy-wise, where some of these drivers will come out after everybody completes their pit stops. So we've got Cortez back on track. Who am I looking for here? So this is Zipper Burn P5, still right behind Laz. We saw he made that little bit of a mistake in Sector 3, but able to keep it collected and keep it right on the back of John Laz. We've got our other Lexus of Mr. Curtis Lee, doing well to keep the pressure on Mr. Pat Cockcroft, P6. We've got some pit action. We've got some side-by-side action. This is Mr. Vargas attempting to make the move around Mr. Russell Allen, but just a bit deep on the brakes. Not able to make it stick. Russell Allen maintains position. Neither of these drivers have been able to pit yet. This is currently showing as an on-track battle for P10 and 11. But we will see how that shakes out. Back on board with Mr. Lee. Whoa. Excuse me, sir. Okay, he's still on track. That looked like a bit of a connection hiccup there. Curtis Lee, kind of a teleport back to pits, but he's back on track. Thank goodness. Battling hard still. P6 and 7 on track right now. Back to our other close on-track battle. So our two Plan E Racing Porsches under a huge threat. Russell Allen a bit loose on the brakes into that slow left-hander, enabling Vargas to make the move. He gets it done this time. This is Mr. Vargas up into P10 over Russell Allen. Well done to him to take advantage of the small little wobble from Mr. Russell Allen. Zipper burn still right up on the back of Mr. John Laz. Beautiful stuff out of these two drivers. Keeping it tidy, keeping it respectful. We'll see which one blinks first. It is about the time when you would expect them to pit. Speaking of pits, we got Mr. Curtis Lee. He said, I'm tired of chasing that Porsche around. I'm going to come in for some new tires, maybe get himself an undercut. We've got Almeida in the pits. A bit further down the order. So of our drivers that have pit, so wow, a timely look down the board. So this is Mr. Samuel Cortez. He has completed his mandatory pit stop, and he has just put in the fastest lap of the race, a 1:37.007, as we see a driver on track. Trying to find out what happened. So I was going to try to see what happened with Mr. Sean Williams, who was stopped in Sector 3, but he quit the server. So unfortunate stuff out of there for the Champion Motorsports Ferrari. Looking up ahead, this is Guzman on Shea, a pretty close on-track battle. We've got Brown on the driver ahead, Ansem, less than a second there. Allen still keeping it tight up behind Vargas. He's not given up yet. You saw Vargas getting a little wide out onto the dirt there in Sector 3, but doing it well to keep it together. You see that Nissan GTR of the Bottle of Water Racing team, Justin Rosenthal. He's a blue flag and doing very well to keep it respectful in traffic. Fantastic stuff out of these D3 drivers. We've got some close on-track. Oh, no! We had some close on-track fighting there, but that was Mr. Jeremy Yarin. We're going to give it a second and try to find what happened here. So I believe he's blue flagged to Richie Wood, and as the BMW behind of Mr. Sweeney comes through, a little bit of contact there. Unfortunate stuff. We've got some more drama. We've got drivers in the chat who should be on track. Mr. Zodi Fade and Mr. Justin McKechnie, both in pits, both with McKechnie reporting that he died in the last turn, and I believe that is race done for him. You hate to see it, especially since he's rocking the beautiful Bailey Mobile livery. Back on board up at the front, Mr. Zipperburn, 5th place, up behind Mr. John Laz. Both drivers now. Oh, you saw Zipperburn was contemplating perhaps a pit stop, or maybe he was just going for the slipstream. But John Laz now, with 30 minutes left on the board, coming in for his 1 mandatory pit stop. I'm seeing some reports of some... Oh, we've got some dropped frames. Oh no. Please hold. What is happening? Oh no. Stream, come back to me. I'm doing it all by myself. I want to be live. I want to be live. Okay, so we are having some stream difficulties. We're trying to work it out. Oh God, oh God. Okay, well, so this is a new experience. I don't know if I'm talking to anybody. Oh, if I restart the stream, it's gonna not go back live. What do I do? Okay, so with 27 minutes left in this race, we are starting a supplementary YouTube recording. So the people on the stream, I see you out there, Mr. Justin McKechnie, typing in chat that yes, the stream has problems. I can report to you from the booth that I'm having problems on my end as well. But for future, what I'm going to attempt to do is do a recording on my side, so at the very least we can get the last half of this race preserved for future generations via the miracle of YouTube video uploading. So with that all out of the way, what we're going to do is we're going to go on board with Mr. Martin Riggs, one of our last drivers needing to pit. So we've got Pat Cockcroft, Martin Riggs, and Russell Allen were the 3 drivers left out on track who were yet to complete their mandatory pit stop. Riggs we see in the pits, so the 2 Plan E Ireland Racing Porsches of Cockcroft and Allen, the last drivers out on track. In the meantime, we have had an upset at the front, so Caleb Craig, our race leader, has been overtaken by Mr. Samuel Cortez of the TC8 Racing Team, driving that beautiful McLaren 720 Evo. But he was a very early pitter, so the storyline here will be, will Caleb Craig have the tire advantage? Will it lead to him hunting down Mr. Cortez and making a last-minute heroic overtake as we see disaster behind? So this was Mr. Martin Riggs, who we saw with a late pit stop, speeding in the pit lane, a stop-go 30 penalty for Mr. Riggs. You hate to see it. He's showing 15th now, but that's going to drop way, way down after that unfortunate penalty. So, back up at the front. So our provisional podium right now. So we've got Cortez from Craig from Watts. P1, 2, and 3 of our drivers who have completed their mandatory stops. DJ Watts doing well to keep it right up on the back of Caleb Craig. You see the gap there on your screen. It's less than a second. It's about 0.7 of a second as they come around to finish their 21st lap of this race. We see a little further back, so this is Curtis Lee on track 9th place, right up behind Mr. John Laz, showing 7th place. The driver ahead, Quentin Shatner, must have been another one of our early pitters, went for that undercut, made up a position here. So at the time, he was not ahead of John Laz on track. Oh, behind you see Curtis Lee, a little bit of teleporting, but still on track. So Shatner from Laz from Lee, who is right up behind that black and gold Porsche of John Laz. Quentin Shatner, a strategical masterpiece, getting himself up into a provisional 5th place overall ahead of Mr. John Laz. Jumping back on board, this is DJ Watts right up behind a Comic Motorsports Bentley of Caleb Craig. This is an on-track battle for provisionally P2 and 3 as we see as we see DJ Watts getting a little bit slidey coming out of that last turn, losing the gap to Mr. Caleb Craig ahead. So we had one of our holdouts, Russell Allen, has come into the pits. Pat Cockcroft, the last of our drivers, still out on track and has not taken his mandatory tires yet. Kind of cruising out here. I mean, he's been on this set of tires for almost 40 minutes. They have to be screaming at him, Pat Cockcroft, please come into the pits. As we see behind Curtis Lee, still right up behind Mr. John Laz. This is a super tight on-track battle. You see Shatner ahead, Laz from Lee coming into, that's out of the 3rd turn into this kind of twisty up and over roller coaster section here. Entering sector 2, got to keep it nice and tight on the brakes over the top of this hill. Great stuff out of these 3 drivers. Man, Shatner doing well. So again, you would imagine he's going to be at a disadvantage on the tires. 20 minutes left in this race is going to feel like a lifetime for his. Similarly, Cortez who is your race leader effectively, as Cockcroft has come into the pit. So in a second here, Samuel Cortez will drive right past him on the start-finish straight, inheriting the overall P1 of this race. An early pitter, because of the early drama, early strategy, whatever the reason, Samuel Cortez, 21 minutes left in this race, and he is going to have to be smooth. He's going to have to be steady, and he's going to have to pray that his tires hold out, because Caleb Craig behind in this Comic Racing Bentley is a force to be reckoned with, and he is on the hunt. DJ Watts, after that little incident, had dropped a little ways back. He is still showing about 3 seconds, 2.9 seconds off of second place, so definitely still in the race. Looking a little further down the order, we've got Mr. Wood, 4th place. We've got Mr. Shatner. Mr. Shatner, P5. Curtis Lee hanging out, 6th place. We've got Mr. John Laz, P7. Zipperburn, P8, who was the last driver to pit, has made it work. He's still holding on to P11 in this race. Decent strategy out of him. Now right up behind the Audi of Mr. Kevin Johnston. And again, got to talk about tire advantage. Pat Cockcroft on a brand new set of slick tires right up on the back of the West Coast Best Coast Audi of Kevin Johnston, and he is looking super strong. Going to be putting a ton of pressure on the Audi ahead. We'll be interested to see how this one plays out over the course of the race. So, side-by-side action now. We've got Lee on Shatner into turn 1. Shatner trying to hold him tight to the inside, but there's contact. Shatner onto the back of the Lexus, but they keep it on track. They keep it in line. So Curtis Lee holding the position here over Mr. Shatner. This is an on-track battle for P5, 6. You see 7th behind is Mr. John Laz. You see Mr. Zipperburn right up behind. So 4 drivers on track, covered by about a second and a half. Gonna love to see how this one plays out. Another tight battle. This is P1 and 2, Cortez and Craig. The Bentley looking ferocious right up on the back of that McLaren. Into sector 3 here at the end of this 25th lap. Looking back a little further, this is Mark Anthony Eaton under pressure from Mr. Wilder Vargas behind. We've got Alberts right in the mix, P16. Mark Anthony Eaton washing out a bit wide. I don't know if it'll be enough. Keep on fighting. Keep it up. It's keeping me in this battle. At one time, DJ Watts has been dropped by about 3 seconds, right back up on the tail of that Bentley. This is your podium. You're looking at him. Cortez from Craig from Watts. 16 minutes left in this race, and it is anybody's trophy to take. A little bit further back, we got Cockcroft on Johnston. Oh, no. That's going to call it a commentator's curse. That was Cockcroft into the back of the Audi of Mr. Kevin Johnston, but doing the gentlemanly thing and slowing it right down for Mr. Johnston, who then goes a bit wide into turn 2. That might have been the curb of death there. Was that our first? Oh, God, and the disaster continues for Johnston. We're going to stop cursing him. We're going to jump back ahead to the battle for P1, 2, and 3 again. Craig attempting a move on Cortez. Little bit of side-by-side action, a little bit of rubbing his racing between these two drivers. Cortez will have the inside for these two attacked, and now a ton of damage. Samuel Cortez, you have to imagine, will be needing to pit for repairs at the end of this lap, and that will be his race done. Let's jump back up ahead. We've got a battle still on track. This is Shatner, Laz, and Zipperburn for P5, 6, and 7. Laz right up on the back of Shatner, ahead. Not enough of an overlap to attempt any sort of move, unfortunately, as the stream is still just dead. You hate to see it, and I'm so sorry to the people who were trying to watch live, but we'll get the recording uploaded. Don't you worry about it. So back up at the front, he started the race as our pole position driver. After a little bit of contact with John Laz, who was running P1, Caleb Craig inherited the lead. Caleb Craig here still, we're back to normal running. Again up into P1, under pressure. Caleb Craig trying to drop his competitors. You will have to assume. So, as per usual with Division 3, the races are never decided until Saturday night when all penalties are finalized. Caleb Craig, because of that early touch on John Laz, you wonder how much of a hammer he's going to get hit by our stewards. So what he's trying to do here is he's trying to put as much distance between himself and the rest of the field as possible to minimize any potential position losses due to that penalty. So looking back, so we've got, zero gap essentially to DJ Watts behind. 13 seconds to third place, another 5 to fourth, and another 5 to fifth. So the gaps are there where Caleb Craig, you think, wouldn't lose too much were any penalties to be handed out. But we will definitely have to wait and see. Back to Pat Cockcroft. So we've seen him. He was one of our latest pit stops. He will have the freshest tires, him and his teammate, Mr. Russell Allen. So right up on the back of Carlos Guzman. Cockcroft on Guzman again, still super tight, coming out of the final turn onto this start and finish straight for the end of their 32nd lap. Cockcroft making a look to the inside, not close enough to make a move, but just trying to get into the head of God. I don't know how long it's been. I muted my mic because my wife was yelling at my dogs. I was talking that whole time. Apparently to myself. Not only was my internet failing, I as a commentator was failing. So, I suppose this will be the opportunity where I issue a heartfelt apology to everybody out there in YouTube land, either watching live or watching the recording, because tonight was a shit show. At the very least, I will have a recording I can upload separately to YouTube. But, oh God. There will be no interview tonight. I will be going and burying my head in the sand. Actually, I will be calling my ISP first, then I will be burying my head in the sand. I want to thank everybody out there in SRA Nation for the love and support. Hopefully, we will see you back next week for round 7. It's going to be